Hello, and welcome to Let's Talk About It. This is Taylor, your host, and welcome to the show. I'm so grateful and excited to have you here for today's episode where we will get into sex tech, which isn't a space we have really touched on the podcast yet. I hope that you all are making it through your week as best as you can, that you are giving yourself some self-compassion, that you are allowing space and making space for pleasure in your day-to-day life, okay? Pleasure is not something that we earn. It is something that we are born with a right to and that we are deserving of without doing freaking anything, okay? So I hope that that is where you are. If that is not where you are doing your best and you can always get there, okay? So I'm really excited to share with y'all today's guest, Alicia. Now, I usually do a good amount of internet stalking of my guests beforehand and was really surprised pleasantly to learn some things about Alicia in this episode that I did not already know about her work. And so just to give you a little bit of background on Alicia, she is a certified sex educator. She is a multi-award-winning sex tech designer. She's been in the industry for a long time and has really helped also kind of shape and shift the culture within the sex tech industry. And just, is goals also. So I will save all of these other wonderful things for you guys to hear from her, and we can kind of just get right into it here. So as usual, I hope that you are listening with an open mind, an open heart, and open ears. I hope that you take some things away from this episode. Feel free to share with your friends. Feel free to share with your family. Don't forget to check out the episode notes for links and other resources. And if you have not already, please leave a review for the podcast, a star review, a actual written review, whatever you have the space and the capacity for. If you take something away from this episode or any episodes, please show some love. We also are on Instagram at Let's Talk About It _podcast. So be sure to check us out on all of the things and support however you can. And with all of that said, let's talk about it. All right. So welcome, Alicia, to the show. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today and to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you here and wondering if we could kind of start off with you sharing a little bit about just where you are, your identities, what you do for work, what brings you here.
Sure. Okay. So my name is Alicia. I am a 41-year-old she, her. Mm-hmm. And let's see, I have been in the sex tech industry for almost 20 years now. And 5 years ago, going on 6 years ago, I founded with a couple of my friends, a parent company called COTR. And that's the company that is the house to the brands V-Vibe Le Wand and the Cowgirl, which we launched in, 2016, 2017, 2018. And let's see, where am I at in the world? I just had a baby, and that's been a really interesting physical and emotional experience. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I've been in quarantine for almost 2 years, so I feel socially awkward in public.
Mm-hmm, I feel that.
I feel really I feel like I should go out, but I also don't want to, and I also do. It's really weird. But I think that's, we're prepping for in-person trade shows and events once again. And that's, I think what's mostly baby bath time and trade shows. Yeah. That's where my life is at. Yeah. In product development. That's about it.
Mm-hmm. Totally relate to I feel like I should be out socializing, but also I don't want to.
Yeah. I really I was saying to myself earlier, I'm it's Friday. I should, I feel like I should have a plan, and my plan is to stay at home and do nothing. And I'm really happy with that.
Yes. Yeah. It really takes away all of that pressure of FOMO. I think that we all had pre-pandemic, where now it's, I forget who said this or introduced me to this, but JOMO of joy of missing out. It's no longer oh, I should be out. And I wish I was out. But it's I feel like I should be out, but wow, watching this show at home in my pajamas,
comfortable clothes,
in my safe space. It feels so nice.
Yeah. With all your food nearby.
Yes.
The luxuries, your bed close.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so like you're in sex tech, and can you share a little bit for folks about like, what is sex tech? What does that mean to be in sex tech?
Well, now that's what we call the overarching category of, now it's called many things. You know, when I started, it was just called the adult business. Yeah. And now we call anybody that makes premium products that maybe have an app or remote control or have some type of cool technology. That's overarching category is considered sex tech. So everything that falls under that umbrella. Yeah.
And you mentioned B-Vibe. So B-Vibe is a part of like your overarching company?
Yeah. So we have a parent company. So, and then we have 3 sub-brands that exist. You know, they each have a different thing that they focus on. So B-Vibe was our first brand. It's our butt toy brand.
Yeah.
And that's the only brand that everything about B-Vibe.
No, I love everything about B-Vibe. And I literally just sent like an entire packet of resources of just B-Vibe to one of my clients who, we talk through anal sex and kind of the prep, the aftercare, the during, all of that. And I was like, B-Vibe is like a fantastic resource. And so like put together a whole thing. And even as I was going through it again, because I know like the podcast with Luna as well, where I was like, I love everything that B-Vibe does. And I'm like, oh yeah. Like y'all are killing it. I didn't even realize that was part of your work in your company
portfolio of brands. Yeah. B-Vibe was actually our first brand, and we had a really clear vision for that brand. I had come prior to working at B-Vibe. I had come from a company called Jimmy Jane, which at the time was a really forward-thinking, small boutique, one of the first companies that ever made rechargeable, body safe, like had their own website, just light years ahead of where the adult industry was at that particular time. But I had come from that brand, and my point in telling you all this really is that I had kept pitching, like, we should make butt toys. Yeah. And that we're such a press-focused brand, which again was kind of unheard of at that time. So they were really like nervous about upsetting that cycle of press and wouldn't touch butt toys. And I was like, there's, if you will, like a massive hole in the marketplace. And there's such an opportunity to fill this with great products and rethink this category. And also I was becoming a certified sex educator. Yeah. Because as a sales rep, I would go into stores all the time, and I would go to stores like say Pleasure Chest or Good Vibrations or Babeland. And the sales reps knew more than me. And I started feeling, wow, like something's wrong here if the people making the toys don't know as much as the people selling them. And so I became a certified sex educator. And my number one thing was to provide all of these resources for people to learn how to have pleasurable, safe, inclusive, comprehensive education and, all these things that were just totally missing. So it really makes me happy to hear that you've shared our information, because that was the goal, that was the goal.
Yeah. I mean, even just the entire, I think I might even still have it pulled up here on my desktop. Now I had to make space for things. So I had to clear my desktop, but, the entire guidebook even of like how to engage in anal sex, like the design of it, the information, it just walked you through all of it, where I was like, this is fan-fucking-tastic. And part of me was also like, I love that this isn't like, I love that it's an actual like sex, like tech sex toy brand that's doing this, because a lot of the times I think people purchase sex toys and then they're like, how do I
use
now?
This? Yeah. Well, that was if you really want to go to the origin, that was my experience with anal sex had not been pleasurable. Yeah. And it's like similar to a story that I'm sure as an educator or, a therapist, like we've heard a lot of these stories, which is, really painful sex first time, no lube, no preparation, no consent, no boundaries were established, so all of that, and, poop is a big, so all those things, like I had all those, like I experienced all those. So I felt like, and also where do you find the information? Like where I would, there was just no good resource. So anyway, it's cool to, to provide that and to do, I think one of my most favorite things was to rethink that category and just be like every you've probably seen the campaign, but like everybody has a butt, like everyone has a butt. Like, and the cool thing about anal sex, I always say it's like the equal opportunity orifice, like it doesn't matter like gender or sexual orientation or like, it doesn't matter. Like everyone can enjoy, and like you can really like play around with top bottom, it's a cool brand.
Absolutely. Because there really, from my knowledge, aren't any other brands that are specific to anal play, anal education, anal pleasure, anal products. B-Vibe is always like the go-to. That's really the only one that I engage with and that I know of and that I recommend. So that's so fun.
So cool.
Yeah.
You made my weekend. Thank you.
This is how we get pleasure in our weekends now.
Totally. Yeah. A compliment. I'll take it. Yeah.
Yes. Well, and so like, it sounds like you found your way to being a sex educator through working in sex tech. So how did you get to doing sex tech to begin with?
So I, really slipped on a banana peel. It wasn't an intentional career move. I graduated from college. My sister lived in Los Angeles. I just wanted to I was in Seattle and I just wanted to get out of the rain. I was like, oh, I can't take any more rain. My sister was in LA. I was like, I'm doing it. I'm going there. I moved out. We went under U-Haul, my boyfriend at the time, we drove down. And anyways, I was looking for a job. Yeah. And this is like going to sound like such a I answered a Craigslist ad. I'm not even joking. I answered a Craigslist ad. Had something in there about being open-minded. And I was like, well, this is like LA, it's something about chakras or, there's going to be something in there. No, it was like literally an adult toy company. It was a massive, I walked into this 170,000 square foot building. They gave me a tour. Wow. I was, I think at the time, the only woman that worked there, aside from someone in accounting. Definitely on the sales team, I was the only woman.
Yeah.
And I just, felt like I got in there and, now we're going back like 20 years ago, but there wasn't a lot of college educated folks. There definitely wasn't a lot of women, and it was a somewhat disorganized business. And I say that with the most love and care because I've been part of it for 20 years, but there was a lot of room for opportunity. And I feel that I definitely went back and forth on whether or not I could live in this world forever because I wasn't able to share what I did with a lot of my family without receiving a lot of judgment in return. And I was like, I don't know if I felt like it might be hard for me to find a partner long-term. Like I had a lot of, I guess, shame about what I did until probably, quite honestly, 10 years ago. So it took me a long time to get over that. But my point, and really, if I get back, I'm like rambling, but I just felt that there was a lot of room for opportunity. And so I stuck around, and then I just kind of made my way through sales assistant to account manager to sales director, so on and so forth.
Yeah. Well, I think to your point of it being disorganized, with love, I think is a bit representative of kind of the sex field as a whole. And that's by design because we aren't educated, because there is a ton of shame and stigma around anything related to sex. So, even regulations, I say this all the time on the podcast, the regulations for being a sex therapist, the only place that's regulated is in Florida. Everywhere else, anybody could say, because I talked about sex in this one session, I am putting up in my ad that I am a sex therapist. You don't have to have any training, nothing. Anybody can say that they're a sex therapist. And in most programs, you get one human sexuality course as like an elective. If you're a marriage and family therapist, literally maybe 2 courses on it. And it's really the bare minimum. And so it's like really by design, the fields, regulations, even around, sex work and whatnot, make it so that a lot of stuff that happens within the sex industry isn't regulated, doesn't have, proper like funding or accessibility. And in turn kind of ends up being a bit disorganized.
Yeah. And I think that also works to the, the manufacturers. I would say that, create products that break really quickly, that use poor materials, that don't perform as advertised, that have given this business a bad name, specifically the sex toy business, for such a long time. And, it's been a lot of work it took a lot of women, if I'm being really honest. And, a lot of, I don't want to say just one, but people who really loved sex and really felt that it took that to make like the people from inside to make it better, because it was, you still look at Amazon. It's embarrassing, you know?
Yes. My first toy was Amazon, and mistake.
Yeah. Yeah.
large mistake. But so you grew up, or I don't know about grew up, but it sounds like within your family, you had to kind of deal maybe with some backlash or discomfort around working with a sex toy manufacturer in California. What was your experience kind of like being introduced or exploring initially sex toys?
I had actually gone into a Babeland store in college. That was my first experience.
Yeah.
So that's a feminist run. So I think that was like it was a safe experience, but I remember the product offerings were pretty poor. So I think I ended up with something that was like green jelly and like a pocket rocket, something in that vein. And I remember I got yeast infections from, and I didn't realize at the time that it was coming from the product because, you know, jelly, so I didn't realize at the time. So, but I think I was always also using wands, back massagers. I didn't realize that like everyone used back massagers for masturbation. I thought I was like the smartest person in the world that discovered this. So I'd always been kind of converting back massagers. And I had a boyfriend also in college, also in high school, that was like, I mean, at the time I thought he was so freaky, and his mom had a back massager. Oh my God, did you think about it? And he was like, you should get one of these. So I had some like experience with vibrating products.
Yeah.
But it was nothing that, I openly discussed or talked about with anybody. I remember a boyfriend seeing it and definitely shaming me pretty hardcore about it.
Since you're going back to high school here and boyfriends talking about vibrating things, I'm having a flashback to boyfriends wanting to use my electric toothbrush on my vulva. Wow. And I never... No, like over my underwear once, they like press not the part that goes in your mouth, okay, but like the handle part on me, and just kind of being like, this doesn't feel hygienic. I'm gonna it's my toothbrush. I just don't want it near my vagina or my vulva. But yes to the vibration.
Yeah, right. I'm liking what I'm feeling here, but not comfortable with the device.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it sounds like. First of all, 20 years in the business, I can't even imagine how it's shifted. And as you said, it sounds like a lot of help from women to change the industry. I'm wondering if there's anything that sticks out like a lot to you in terms of what has changed for the good from 20 years when you first entered to what you see now.
I think the two main things are the fact that there are women and that the women are respected, because as a young woman and really not feeling like in my power yet, I didn't have to. I unfortunately was sort of programmed to take in a lot of and like be treated in a certain way. And I never said anything about it just because, people would talk about, I'd be sitting at a table with my boss and 3 or 4 coworkers and like a big customer, man, like, and I'd be the only woman at the table, and they'd be talking about things that, I think were just really inappropriate, maybe different ways they'd had sex or different people they'd had sex with or a different way. And I just felt like really uncomfortable. And it was beyond that. I felt like even at some point in my career, I just felt like I was used as like a carrot on a stick, to get customers to come to dinner, or I would be asked to sit very intentionally next to them. And so I feel like that's not something, at least that I see as much anymore. But I do feel like the kind of that generation of when there seemed like there's a lot of young salespeople in that time, we really put up, we really endured a lot of that attitude. And there wasn't like, anybody to really, I also felt disempowered to talk about it as sexual harassment because we work for an adult-based company. So it didn't feel like we would be listened to, even if we did take that. So that, and then I think the quality of products is vastly different. not just in the material, but also in the design, the functionality, the presentation, the branding, and the way that we talk about them. So they're just, I think when I entered, there was like women's spread eagle on a product being sold to a woman. And it was just very like, what? Like, first of all, why do you have to label this? Like, it was just so confusing, So it's nice to see that people are also like, hey, lots of people can use this product. It doesn't have to be geared towards one type of person. And PS, like, no one's interested in that.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely find that when I talk about sex toys, people are most interested in discretion in terms of design and packaging. So I think unless I go into a sex shop, like a sex toy shop, none of the toys that I see or that I recommend have imagery like that.
Yeah.
Because it's not.
It's nice. We've come a long way, a long way. Yeah, actually, I feel like some of the products especially in the wand, they're like really pretty, they're things that you like kind of, I don't know, they look a lot like this. I saw this like massager for your breast for breastfeeding. It's supposed to like loosen. And I was like, that looks literally like a vibrator. And then I've seen like stuff for your face. I'm like, that's a vibrator. Like these people are like coding these products as different things, to like get them in the top drawer.
Yep. Yeah. So can we talk about the wand for a little bit?
Sure.
Your experience in starting that, your experience, and then I just have I have questions specifically about the toys themselves, but if you could talk a little bit just about the development of that for you.
So every brand that we brought to the marketplace, it felt like there was a hole, there was something that was lacking. And I'm a big wand fan, as you may know by now. And I just felt that the wands that were on the marketplace at the time, so we're going back to when we started developing, was 2015. And they just looked all the same, and there wasn't a lot of functionality, and there hadn't been any updates, and like brand name owners were removing their brand names from their packaging. And I really wanted to create a product that had a lot more functionality, that was aesthetically more pleasing, that from a retail perspective had testers, had displays, represented a section in the store. So just all the things that were missing. And then like kind of its mission was to empower people and to like own masturbation as something that's healthy or something that we can enjoy or something. So that was really the wand, I think initially was just wands. We just made wands. And then we did something like very simple, which is just make a bunch of attachments, because I think the cool thing about the wand is it's like the MacGyver of sex toys, like you can like hook all these different attachments and it works on like all these different kinds of bodies and all these cool places. And its length, while, can be a hindrance for some, can also like empower other experiences. So like, again, like B-Vibe was a little different because there was just nothing in anal sex. Whereas like, female empowerment, wands, masturbation, like there is a lot more there in general, but I do feel that the education that we were able to provide also to stores, when you were going in and training stores and giving them education, it's changing the experience for the customer. So I do feel that like that was the mission with the wand, is to educate people. And then once we made really great vibrating wands, and people were like, well, what about, miniature mini vibes? There's this whole market of mini vibes. So then we just started expanding into pretty much like vulva and clitoral products. But so that's the wand.
What would you say? Because I'm like, do I give my answer first, or do I ask you for your answer first? What would you say is the best toy that you would recommend for beginners, for, let's say, a woman, someone with a vulva who has never used a toy before? What would you recommend as a beginner?
For someone who's never used a toy before, I think something like a bullet is a great place to start. It depends on how, how much money you have to spend on products. If you're just getting into the marketplace and you just want to see if you like it, I think that there are lots of reasonably priced bullets that are powerful, that are small, and if you like that sensation, maybe go up or experiment with suction or, something like, a wand. I think all those things are options, but I always like to say like maybe start small and like discover in baby steps before you spend big money on, because some people like buzzy, pinpointed, focused products. Some people like rumbly, broad vibration products. And it takes a long time to understand what your body likes. You know?
I mean, that's such a good point. And I do like that you are prioritizing accessibility financially, because that is a huge part. Like people are always, sex toys can be expensive. And do I make that investment? How do I know I'm making the right investment? I feel like I always recommend a wand because it can be used in many different parts of your body. And I think the handle of the wand helps with accessibility a ton. There's so many other things I want to ask you that maybe we'll talk about afterwards, because I might want to make a sex toy. We'll see. We'll see. I'm probably going to go the book route, but the sex toys, in terms of accessibility for solo penetration vaginally, I think is really difficult for leverage. But that is one thing I do appreciate about the wand, is that, you have the long handle, and that helps make it, I think, more accessible.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But it's amazing all of the things that you can do with sex toys and all the different places, and really just kind of the actual experience of using them. I think one question that I get a ton is, how do you even start using them? So I'm wondering if you have tips for people who have a toy, they've read what to do with it. They understand, okay, I press the button, it's washed, it's lubed, but that mental and emotional relaxation, that embodiment that you spoke about, how you can feel empowered through using toys. How would you recommend someone practice that?
Is this a solo scenario? Like we're
masturbation,
having solo sex?
Yeah.
I mean, I always like, more sensual approach to things, which is like, I generally say like, add it into your like massage. Like if you're massaging or like caressing your body, maybe just whether, specifically if you have a wand, I mean, there's what the cool thing about massage or about using a wand is it works for pain and pleasure, right? So if you have sore muscles, like maybe explore that area and then just let it like slide over. So if your lower back hurts, like maybe just roll it around your hip and like kind of get close to that area and just gently feel what that vibration feels like. And then maybe not so much focus in like having and like masturbating, but just like kind of caressing your body and like feeling that not just in one place, but in all your erogenous zones, especially if it's solo sex, like play with nipples, play with, I would say your perineum, like play with what things feel like rubbing in your inner thighs, and then obviously like what I would consider my money spot, around the clitoris and then like on the outside of the vulva.
Yeah. Well, and I do think people kind of miss that part. Like they think masturbation. So they're like, I have to touch my genitals. And it's like, well, if you are doing partnered sex, typically speaking, you're kissing first. You're touching each other in other areas first before they go straight to your genitals. Hopefully they're not just grabbing you by the pussy. Hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah.
So giving yourself that little bit of warm up and exploration first. Yeah.
Yeah. Like grounding yourself, caressing yourself, appreciating yourself.
Yeah. That appreciation, worshiping yourself a little bit. That self-love piece. There's a lot to unpack for folks with that. And then I think there's the second layer of that, perhaps, of partnered play with toys, which I think there's a lot there. How do you find, well, and I guess this is maybe more of a personal question. You're in sex tech, you have these different sex companies. Within your partnered experiences, I would imagine that there is less of that resistance or hesitation or rejection of using toys. So I think a lot of, female identified people feel like they're male penis partners are very intimidated by the use of toys. They feel like it's a rejection on them and feels like a really scary thing to introduce to the relationship. I'm imagining that you don't struggle with that.
I believe that would be very on a similar evolutionary trajectory as my relationship with my career. So I had in my younger life, like, so say right around college, I didn't own, I think, anything other than maybe like a recommandeered like wand. And then I got married when I was really young, engaged when I was 22, married when I was 25, divorced when I was 27, obviously. But my experience in that relationship, I married somebody that was a little bit older than me, and just unhealthy in so many ways, but was very opposed to sex toys, like not even something that could be brought up. Like it was such a very much in fear that would replace him. And then I had subsequent relationships, I think the next two, where partners felt jealous of vibrators. And so I went through this. And then, now in my relationship, I'm with a person that is all about like, hey, you want the wand? Or, like there's no, like everyone's finishing, like we're all like, and if that's even important in that particular experience, but it's I think that's an evolution in my own relationship. Also, like, as I said earlier, with my career, like being able to be like, sit on a plane and tell somebody like, I'm the CEO of a sex tech company and not feel embarrassed about it. It's sort of the same thing, like to come into a relationship and be like, I use sex toys. That's like part of my, like, I love your hands and your tongue and all of those things, but like, I need a wand vibrator. I'm just being honest about that. It has nothing to do with you. It really has nothing to do with you.
Yeah. And like a vibrator doesn't have hands and lips to kiss you with either. Like, so there's things that humans bring to the table that vibrators don't. And there's things that vibrators bring to the table that humans don't.
Right. And as they, you can air dry your hair. Yes, that's fine, but you can also blow dry it. And there's like, some things work faster and more efficiently, like there's nothing wrong with using the devices, right? That humans have created to make all of these things more convenient and pleasurable in our life. And I just see that as one more household item that makes my life more convenient and pleasurable. There's nothing wrong with that.
I love that. I I have never heard it in that way, and I love it. It's just like letting your partner know, I'm going to blow dry my hair today instead of air dry it. It's just where we're at. How exactly would you say, you encourage or can give tips to people when like you were in those relationships where people were intimidated by the toys and did want to reject those as a part of, your partnered play? What kind of advice maybe would you want to give to people who are kind of in those relationships now?
I think it's really cool to flip it around. So what I would generally do is use my vibrator as a tool on somebody else. And just so they can experience like, yes, I can, again, like kind of the same thing that I'm saying, but here, like you can experience it, like proof's in the pudding, like, do you enjoy this thing on your inner thighs, on your testicles, on your nipples, on the head of your penis? Like, do you enjoy this thing? Does it feel good to you? Okay. So like, it's the same, but it's cool. You can, as I said, you can experience it for yourself.
Yeah. And for heterosexual cis men.
The elephants in the room.
I'm like, for them though.
Where do we start? I mean,
just because I know.
Gonna tick off a long list, but
because like I know that when people ask me that question of like, my partner's really intimidated by the toys, he's got a penis and, feels like his penis should be enough. There's layers there to break down. And it's like, there are playful, creative, deeper ways you can communicate and explore to kind of break those things down to where the toys are something that is welcomed in the experience. And kind of how you were describing, really sounds like allowing them to have a relationship with the toys. And I also think there's a lot of kind of stigma and shaming, almost embarrassment, or like, I want to say almost like degradation of men using toys. And I'm wondering maybe how you've seen that within the sex tech industry at all.
You can witness it in the amount of products that are out there for cis men, specifically, and how they're marketed. They're still marketed, if you will, from what I would consider something that's very toxic. It's a lot of, it just seems like pornography is the only way that they can catch that attention. And that's got its own, there's so many issues within that. But I think, I don't know, there just doesn't seem to have been like a cis man that is representing, or even forget one, there's not two or three that are coming out and talking about how products can empower your life. And how, for example, how all these masturbation tools can be fun for men. I like Tanga eggs as a very simple, cis friendly, if you will, or cis comfortable sex toy, right? That's the only thing that I can really think of. But if you get into prostate toys, or even, I guess the other one would be the fleshlights. That's the only thing that I can think is the two kind of comfortable realms. And and outside of that, there really isn't much that that I could say a lot of people would categorize as gay, if you will. Even though there's no reason to. I mean, we all playing with the same body parts.
There's, I think, a lot of homophobia built into cis men exploring sex toys, especially if it's, prostate. But I think just even as we talk about it, and within my family, we have these conversations too, about how there really aren't cis men giving sex toy reviews, or about how they feel empowered in their bodies. And I know, at least for women, it's come a long way, right? There's a lot more people that are outspoken, that are talking about female masturbation. I feel like there is a lot of spotlight on it to normalize it, to include it as a part of sexual health, as pleasure. And for men, I don't see that. And I don't think it makes anything better.
And there's not even educators out there for folks. We've looked specifically, we always like to have it's important to us to have a diverse group of people that educate on our behalf. And it's been there's a big gap of trying forget straight, just men in general. There's and that's, trans men, cis men, gay, so it's just the entire category. There just doesn't feel like there's anyone really out there. There's just two or three people that I can think of, compared to the hundreds of women therapists and educators and, people that are trying to do the good work, if you will.
Yeah. There's a hole in the market, y'all.
Yes. Someone needs to fill it. Someone needs to fill it.
Yes. The hole is just waiting to be filled by you. Okay. If you are listening.
There.
Yes. I'm wondering if there's been a toy that you've experimented with that you really did not like.
Well, I'm going to say it. I really did not like Womanizer. It's that suction toy. That's just not a sensation that I enjoy.
Okay. Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
Based on sensation, whether it's a human, whether it's a human or a machine, I don't like that sensation. So that product was not for me. Yeah.
Well, I like that you specify the sensation though, because in my head, I wasn't even necessarily thinking about that, but I think that is something important for folks to consider when they are experimenting and exploring with sex toys, is paying attention to the different sensations.
Yeah. If you don't like suction, you don't like somebody sucking on you, that's not going to be a toy you like. But it's interesting because I didn't really like understand that until I tried that product, and people kept being like, how can you not like it? Because everybody liked it. And I was just like, I don't know. I just don't like the suction air thing. It's not for me, you know?
Yeah. See, that was like the best oral sex that I had. The only way I could describe it was almost like they were sucking on my clit. And I didn't know how to describe it. I remember even I was at a diner, it was like 2 a.m. and I was like explaining with my friends after dancing, and we were like trying so hard to find the words for it and like doing it on like our hands, trying to mimic it, where I'm like, yeah, it's almost like they're sucking on my clit. So yeah, different, exploring with different sensations. You never know what you'll find.
It's true. Very true.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there is so much within this space. And I'm wondering if you have a favorite within this space, a favorite toy. I'm guessing is wand.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's like my tried and true, like everything is always going to compare to an OG like size wand for me. Like that's always like, and so what I'm like, well, yes, I can use this product or like that, anything. But I also really like stainless steel. So I'm a person that likes to combine exterior and interior stimulation. So I really like weight, and that's a journey too, because I would say like, that's not something that I would have tried in my early days. But as I got older, and I remember I went into a store and I asked a sales rep, like, what's out there that I haven't tried? And they showed me this like stainless steel thing. And I was like, really? Really? And they were like, you'll never go back. And they did not lie. They did not lie. I first learned about stainless steel, I think through Betty Dodson and the like rock and roll method and all what she taught there. But I still have not actually tried one. Well, so we should get you some.
I think I really do need to.
Yes. I just love it. I think the only way I can really describe it, it's like, there's just the weight. It's like, I'm going to say this about myself. It's like the lazy person's masturbation friend.
That is for me. That is for me.
It's so heavy that, I mean, they're not so, but you when you put it inside, you barely have to move it because the sensation is like that weight inside your body. It just, I don't know. It feels a different way. It penetrates. It makes, I'll send you some products and see if you feel the same way. But if you combine that with, if I like combine that with like exterior stimulation, I just feel like it's like, wow, like, you know, I don't know. I would say it's my best orgasm.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it because I'm all about the lazy masturbation.
Is that a good way? I'm like, it's such a lazy masturbation technique. You just you barely have to move it. It's great.
Yeah. I mean, I'm all for like activating my pelvic floor to get those muscles going. But yeah, I do find penetration to be like very difficult also with my back. I don't have a lot of like, I can't slouch or like, you know, cave in my back. But even part of the reason I love the wand is because I can put that over my underwear, over my pants, and I don't have to like get up and wash it right away.
You got to use the techniques that work best for your lifestyle.
Yep. Or throwing a condom on it, which I remember in the early days, like my friends would make so much fun of me for putting a condom on a sex toy, but it's not, that's not a bad thing to do.
Not a bad thing to do.
Yeah. And I mean, where you're at now, 20 years into the field, how has your family kind of adapted? Like you spoke about like the evolution of like your partners and their comfortability and understanding and your own empowerment with sexuality and with sex toys. How has that, and has it evolved within your family?
Yes, I'm at a stage. So I grew up Mormon, so I had a lot of, you know, that inherent, you like internalize, I think a lot of that around your sexuality specifically. And my dad's still at a place where he can't really talk about it with me. But my mom I've come to a point where I'm just like, Mom, you know, I work with all of these, we're a woman run company, you know, major department is run by a woman. Like, it's a woman-run company. I love what I do. I feel really comfortable with the people that I work with. I feel like I'm doing something meaningful. And like a lot of us, you know, like a lot of people that I talk to that don't like their jobs, don't feel like their job has any meaning, you know? And I do. And I understand that probably for a civilian, like it sounds silly, but like, I actually do think that like creating sex positivity and like helping people feel less stigma, it does produce good results in your life. Right. Cause I think, you know, whatever, it's part of your overall healthy lifestyle is to have great relationship with sex.
Yeah.
So I feel like, and so now I think, you know, when I talk about it like that, you know, I don't have any bend anymore. Like I'm not open to listening to you say anything negative about it. I'm really proud of where I am. And I think that affects the way the other person thinks back about you, if you will.
Yeah.
So now I think they're just excited that I'm happy and I like what I do. And I think it's also like accepted. It's been 20 years. Like I'm not, you know, I'm not changing careers. It's not happening.
Yeah. It's not like we're just going through like this phase of trying to like do all this stuff. Yeah. That makes sense. And you mentioned sex positivity. Can you share a bit of like what sex positivity means for you?
For me, it's, you know, sort of letting everybody have their own relationship with their sexuality, right? Like trying to take away judgment, you know, like, and you learn, I'm sure as a sex educator, you know, I don't do that work in the traditional way, right? But writing, I do a lot of writing and editing and sourcing people to work with. And like, and I think what I find is like, the more people the way they respond to questions, the way we frame and talk about, you know, sex as a whole, how we provide information. I think all of that has to be done in a particular way that's presented from a positive light. You know, it makes everyone feel comfortable to be a part of the experience.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm really wondering here, and so many of my questions in my head for you are so much more back end. And so I'm hoping that they're still helpful for folks listening, but, how do you find you work with or attempt or try have a focus on supporting sex workers within the work that you do in sex tech?
How do we support sex workers?
Yeah. Or like how does any kind of like collaboration happen there? Like what does the relationship look like between sex tech and sex workers for you?
I mean, in the industry, I think there are companies that work with and support sex workers. Yeah. There definitely are. I mean, we have had a lot of folks specifically in the cam market that want to work with the Cowgirl, for example, because that has a plug-in so that they can tip and interact with their clients. So we've seen most of our sex worker work within that brand. Yeah. But we've also, I mean, as a company ourselves, we've supported different events. We've worked with a lot of folks who've done fundraising. Yeah. So in that regard, and, you know, I wish we've done, to be honest, if there are opportunities, I'd like to know, but we react. I mean, mostly folks come to us and we support their events or we work with them. Yeah. And that's, you know, aside from that, I don't know that we have a lot of collaboration with sex workers.
Yeah. 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 I think there's a lot to explore within that. And I think, you know, when I think about like the education that you're providing through, for example, WeVibe or BVibe, and doing the work to become a sex educator as well, I always find that so much of like what we are learning are things that sex workers have been teaching their clients, have been already like doing that kind of work and stuff. And so even, and like development of sex toys too. Like I'm wondering, you know, what role sex workers play in sex toy development, if any. But yeah, I think there's always things to learn.
Yeah, the only time that I can really personally think of like a specific organization that like there's a sex worker organization that had been at a couple sex education shows. I think Catalyst Con, if you'd ever gone to that, and maybe Woodhull, there was some sex worker, but other than that, I don't know that. Yeah, I would say aside from traditional, and what I mean traditional is like old school. Like for example, maybe somebody came and had something molded or was a part of a process of something that was under their name, their branded name. I don't know that there's a lot of collaboration outside of that.
Yeah.
At least to my knowledge.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I've considered doing moldings. Have you ever done a molding?
I never have. I've seen a molding done, but I've never personally done one.
Yeah.
I'm jealous. You have?
I haven't, but I've been kind of considering it. It's kind of been a thought of, I kind of want to do a molding of my butt.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah. Yeah. so many fun things in the sex space.
You're like, ha. Is it the molding like for you personally, like for your own, or are you like selling it in the marketplace?
Yeah,
like,
for people to purchase. You can purchase my bum. Like, I'm so awkward when it comes to stuff. But you did mention Cowgirl, and wondering if you can kind of speak a little bit more to that product and to, that relationship, how it's used, with that being kind of the example of, sex workers.
Oh, sure. Like, and how it's used specifically for sex work?
Just in general, but because it came up through sex work. Yeah.
I mean, I think Cowgirl is, as we say, like Lawandas maybe are like beginner friendly. Like even within that, we'd say Lawanda's not baby's first vibrator. Like we're the company maybe you come to if you appreciate sex and you want a really good sex toy. Like that's because everything's strong and they're, real tried and true products.
Yeah.
Vibe is like our 201, if you will, right? You've graduated from level 1 sex toys and now you're on level 2.
Yeah.
To me, Cowgirl is like 301. It's like level 3. Like, and what I mean by that is like, it's a mega vibrator and it's a saddle style. So you're sitting in the Cowgirl position, hence the name, right? Which is otherwise pretty hard to achieve in a sex toy, right? Vibration when you're sitting on your knees. And it looks literally like a saddle. So you sit on this kind of saddle and then you have the option to use just an external attachment, or you can use something that's internal. Where you see it used a lot with sex work is voyeurism, because somebody can sit on that and you can have like multiple orgasms, really. I mean, we all can in different ways, but this really helps empower that maybe in the way that which you're sitting and your access to your body in different ways that you can play with yourself. I think that's a really sexy voyeuristic thing. And because the vibrator is so powerful, it's really cool to hand that control over to somebody else and allow them to control the functionality, the power, and watch the person's body react. Because we've had that at events and people have sit on them even, fully clothed. And then like their coworker or partner will come play with the remote and you'll see them like jumping around and like, so it's like such a, like you see it, it's like visual experience. So how that works is there's a plug-in. So essentially, if you're a sex worker, you can have the product. You can set up the different tipping amounts, right? If you want to control the intensity, 2 more points, it's X amount. And then people who are watching can tip. So that's just a plug-in between different campsites. But it is used quite often at sex parties. I think that's something that people always ask me, who buys this product? That's a really common question about the Cowgirl. I think it's so interesting. Everyone's like, who uses this? And I don't know, everybody from like people who are solo masturbating, to we've had gay men that purchase it. We've seen it used at people write in, use it at sex parties. I think there's, whatever orgies, like it's one of those products that it is a 301, but lots of different kinds of people use it and enjoy it.
Yeah. I hope one day to be able to go to a sex club again and explore sex parties.
Yeah. I think people were really enjoying that.
Yeah.
And the virtual ones don't cut it.
Yeah. I mean, you do so many things.
I know. We can't slow down.
Yeah. You stay busy. What's your sign?
I'm an Aries.
An Aries. Yeah.
Yeah. With a Capricorn rising.
Yep. I'm a Cancer. I've got lots of feelings. Yeah. Well, I feel like I could continue asking you so many different questions, and like just learning a ton more from you. If people do want to kind of follow along with your work, explore all the things that we talked about today, support your work, get to know you more, where could they find you?
I don't personally participate in social media, but you can follow our brands, B-Vibe, LaWand, and the Cowgirl. And that's all. I think those all have my values and our company missions blended into them. So they are going to present education, and they're all going to have a very similar inclusive vibe, and they'll all be sex positive. And so, I would say that's the best place.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, thank you so much. This has been so great.
My pleasure. Truly.
Yeah. All right. That does it for today's episode. Thank you so much for making it all the way through and keeping your ears, your hearts, and your minds open. It would mean so much to me if you could take a second or two after listening to this episode to leave a review on iTunes and let me know what you're enjoying about the show. I love reading, what your favorite episodes are, where you guys listen, and definitely feel free to share this with a friend. I mean, part of how we break down the stigmas around these topics is by talking about them, right? And sharing them with more people. So definitely share the podcast. And again, really wanting to include all of you in this podcast. So if you have questions or you want to share a thought or an experience, please send in a voice memo to ask.letstalkaboutit@gmail.com. And I'm really excited to keep having these conversations and breaking down these stigmas. So thank you all so much. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and I'll talk to you next time.